Hello, welcome to this week's coaching video. So today we're going to talk about how to have a successful September reset. Okay, and it's not what you think, but for nearly all of us, one way or another, summertime is a time when, we just get out of our routine. Most of us will have our holidays there. If we've got kids, they're off school. Well, it's a time when we really do start to get out of our routine, and we really can enjoy that at first. It's summer, we wait a really long time for it. And having a physical and mental break is really important when we work so hard in all areas of our life all the year round. And then when we get to this point in time, we do start to crave that return to normality. We're women at the end of the day, it might be holidays, we might not be working as much, or work might not be as busy, but quite often we don't quite feel like we've had the same amount of rest as everyone else has had because we've still had so much to do. So we've had to sort of cope with summer, having holidays, having a break from routine, but also having to do things in a quite a different way and maybe a more random, chaotic way. And that can be quite depleting from an energy point of view. So it's probably not a surprise that we start to get excited a little bit about September because we think that when we go back towards our normal routine, children are out the way a little bit more, then we at least it becomes more structured and that can be easier for us to deal with. But what can also happen, and I know a few of you have sort of experienced this, is we sort of start to feel this sense of sort of letting go as we get closer to September, and or when the kids go back to school. So you might have like a deadline in your mind of when you can sort of relax until, and this idea of sort of letting go, and it's not necessarily a good thing in a way because we can start to not like that, and it's like an invisible force. Our energy levels are dipping a bit, maybe running out of tolerance with the randomness of summer. But cravings can start to come back, or there's more social things that we start to feel more out of control of. It can impact our willpower, and we can even start to hear that little voice saying, "Oh, there's no point now, so have the thing. You can start again in September." Which we don't always like, that we don't like that voice. We've worked quite hard to get rid of it. And then what happens is, it's quite hard for us to sort of almost get back, get that willpower, get that structure back because life's not like that yet. So we're struggling a bit. We may feel like we're losing control, and that's okay. Or we might just be choosing to just go easy on ourselves and, be less structured with our eating and our exercise routine. But what can also happen whilst we're doing that is we start to think, okay, well, I will start again in September, which is fine. But we can start to ramp the pressure up now to think, okay, I'm going to be really good in September, really disciplined, really healthy, no snacks, back in the gym. And we can actually start to even get excited by being quite ambitious about, really raising our game. And because it sort of has a bit of a sense of being a new project and a sense of novelty coming back, that idea of it being September and it's a new book, a new start, like when you went back to school. But what actually happens in September and January, by the way, and quite often anytime you just come back from any holiday, is that pressure really ramps up from all sources when you get back to normal. And we can very quickly start to feel overwhelmed again. Then we struggle to be as good as we hoped. Then that leaves us feeling frustrated, feeling demotivated. There's a real shock, I think, of realizing that summer bubble has burst and we're going back to normal. And we can then find that this sort of September resets and these good, period of time of being on point with our diet and in the gym all the time. We really just can't make it happen in the way that we want to. And we start to feel really frustrated by that. And I want to help you. Well, I want to avoid it this year, and 100% want to help all of us avoid it this year. So I've been thinking about this for a couple of weeks, and I do appreciate everyone who, when we've had our one-to-one, sharing, your own experiences, because again, that's really helped me sort of put that into this plan. So I have a different plan, a different approach, and that is I'm going to give it a cheesy headline because it just came to me when I was writing this. Self-care September. So I hope you like that. And that is really trying to embody this idea of a more gentle return to our routines and our good habits. And by that, I mean eating nutritious meals, so having these 3 meals a day, building back up to our exercise routines. But the caveat here is I want to make it easy. And that's a mindset because you can make this easy. And I don't want you to think about or make the food, especially, or the pressure to do as much exercise as you maybe have been doing, any bigger deal than it needs to be. Okay, if that makes sense. And this will make more sense as I go through it because we can very easily over attach to things, get too invested, give them more energy than we really need to. So we all know what works best for us now from a food point of view. It's actually simple. So we can stop overthinking and almost do our meal plans, plan our meals, and just let it happen. Not feel that we're having to sort of force it and think about it all the time. So we're trying to have the idea that instead of putting all of our mental effort into food for September, let's start to shift our focus into some other things and see if we can make progress there in September instead. So we set and forget our meal plans and think about other stuff. So there's a few areas that I want us to focus as part of this. And the first one is really about listening to our bodies. So let's imagine we've set our food plans up, set and forget it. We know what to do by now. It's quite straightforward. What are the things that we do want to pay a bit more attention to in September? And we have a natural ebb and flow of energy as women, and that fluctuates from day to day or week to week. Men don't have the same fluctuations. They can be very steady, enviably, day in, day out, but we're not. So one of that is to sort of start to pay attention to that and to work out according to how we're feeling. So if we're feeling completely on it and totally motivated and we've got loads of energy and we can shift things around so we make it happen, brilliant, knock yourself out. Do as much exercise as you want to. But then a week that happens when suddenly you're tired, stress is building up, you haven't got time, take a step back, do less workouts, make them shorter, take the weights down a little bit. That is how I exercise. That is how I work out. I cannot, yes, I have a consistent workout schedule or plan in principle, but I'm not consistent, sadly, in terms of my energy levels. But rather than trying to force it or be cross when I can't do what I want to do, I just change the intensity so that I'm sort of going up and down with my energy levels. You will still make progress that way. And you will also take a whole lot of pressure off yourself as well. So listen to our body. Then exercise is just one side of a coin. We also have to prioritize rest and recovery. So if we start to feel like our energy is dipping and we're getting a little bit tired, we're not recovering as well as we need to, then we need to think, okay, do we need to have earlier nights, get to bed early? Do we need to take a little bit of time out of the day if we feel ourselves flagging rather than thinking, right, I've got a minute, what jobs need doing around the house? Can they wait? Can we just sit down and do nothing? I really think that it's important for us to learn how to do that more and to be okay with the fact that it's fine for us to have an empty half hour. What I've noticed with myself and talking to other people, we don't need a whole day of doing nothing. We don't need to cancel all our jobs. But if we have a small amount of time where we give ourselves permission to do that, we recover and bounce back from that really quickly. I also want us to think about our mindset as well. And in the sense of, anticipating that September will be challenging. And it's challenging because everything ramps up so quick. Everyone at work comes back all full of energy and intention. And that tends to have a knock-on effect on the pressure that then is on us. So keeping your mind occupied on things outside of work or getting kids to school or new schools, universities, etc., is really just trying to do what things can actually help to keep you in a good place or give you a little bit of escapism, for example. something that I've noticed is really effective for me is reading about people, particularly women, doing really amazing things. So I love reading about women having adventures, and I did share some of my books recently on the WhatsApp group. And it's not that you have to do that yourself. You might be interested in it, but I find that I love reading about these things. They're really light-hearted. They're really inspirational. I'm not necessarily going to do all the things that these women do. I mean, I'm probably very unlikely to, but it's easy for me to dip into and get lost in a little happy place when I have a minute. And I find that really helps keep me in a good place when there's stuff going on in your life, in the world, that can quite easily drag you down. So having those little things that you can tap into to just give you a little bit of a mental boost can go a long way. If we're sort of staying in the mind area and how we can maybe think about how that can sap our energy, another thing to think about is less overthinking, because that can be a massive source of stress for us all. And I think it's not necessarily how much we have to do that is sometimes the problem. It's the fact that we're thinking about it all the time. So instead of just turning up to do the thing that we need to do and getting it out the way and doing it, job done, we're worrying about it, thinking about it, anticipating something times 100 of all the other things in our lives. So we can just be stuck in this endless loop of thinking and worrying, and that's very, very energy sapping. So, and we can very easily get into the habit of this. And I think as women, we tend to be thinking ahead. We're the ones in it. If we're in a relationship, we are, and with a man, they likely have a very sort of compartmentalized view of the world, where we're linking everything together, which makes it complicated to think about. We're thinking ahead, we're trying to anticipate everything, from big things to the most mundane things of whether we need to buy more food or get something out of the freezer. And I also know that menopause symptoms make it worse, that overwhelm, the brain fog, the tiredness. We have to think harder to get the same things done. And that can become a vicious cycle. So we can go a long way to, and if we think we're going to September where we've got these intentions for ourselves, and then we've got 101 other things that then start to happen, that mental overdrive can start to really ramp up. And that's probably one of the things that is the most depleting. So learning how to cope with this and deal with it is actually really important and has massive amounts of value. Now, things like meditation or journaling can be really helpful for that. But I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I am, again, not something that comes naturally to me, meditating. But what I have learned to do, and I know from speaking to some of you that you have as well, is you're able to recognize when you're having these overthinking thoughts and able to dissipate them, for want of a better word. So I'm just going to give you some examples just to illustrate that. So something I do that I notice myself is having arguments with people in my head all the time, which is actually quite funny because I'm in real life, I'm very non-confrontational and not argumentative at all. So maybe this is part of me dealing with the fact that I can be quite reserved and having an outlet for that. But I can find that something will annoy me, or it might be something that I revisit from something that's happened in the past that has annoyed me. And I can be doing something like cleaning, something as mundane as that. And I'll notice I'm having an argument with myself about something to an imaginary person. Now, I'm laughing about it, but if you think that that's, how what's going on in someone's head, and the stress that comes with that, because when you reenact a heated or an argumentative situation, or even if you are imagining a dramatic, frightening thing happening when you're worrying about people, for example, your brain can't recognize the difference between the reality that I might just be mopping a floor versus the imagined in a heated conversation with someone. So my stress levels will be going up when that's happening. So it's not a healthy thing, and it's taxing, it's exhausting, it's pointless as well because it's not truly resolving anything. And I can notice, and this will just happen almost on automatic pilot, and I don't notice. And then I'll realize that I'm having this little argument with myself. And the way I've then dealt with that, or learn how to deal with this is when I recognize that that's happening, I just have a little laugh at myself in a nice, friendly way and say, "Oh God, you're doing that thing again. Why are you arguing to yourself?" And that is enough for me to just very gently laugh at that and just it just disappears. I'm not saying stop thinking like that. Why do you always do that and arguing with myself, or arguing with someone else who's not there? I just have a little laugh. Oh, you're doing that thing again. Why'd you do that? And it can be enough to sort of break that thought pattern. And then worry is another one. My mum was a real worrier and really frightened of everything, and I've inherited that. But I actually think that's quite common as well. And I hate even saying these things because I just don't even like admitting it. But when you worry about something and you're almost imagining some sort of disaster. And I can be driving a car and thinking that I'm going to have a car crash. And then you think you're having a premonition. And then you realize you're holding on to the steering wheel like this and your whole body's tensed up. But you sort of have these doom type scenarios of worrying about the most mundane thing. And you can worry about yourself, or more likely you're worried about everyone else in your life that you care about. And bizarrely, my dad was the complete opposite. He was frightened of no one, and Tim's the same, frightened of no one or anything. I've walked through fields with him with out of controlled horses, and he just casually walks up to it as if he was going horse riding, and I'm literally trying to think about how I'm going to get through an electric fence. Was obviously still alive to tell the tale, so he was right. He didn't have anything to worry about. But so now when I notice myself having these worrying, fearful situations, which, as I said, will create cortisol and stress, I'm just getting used to telling myself that it's not going to help or make a difference. And that can be the same with work or work situations. I might have, we all have things to worry about at work, things that we think we need to do or that we've not done or that we've forgotten to do, but we can't do them now because it's too late. And, again, getting into that loop of saying, okay, it's fine. I don't have to worry about that thing until tomorrow. It's not going to change anything. No one's probably bothered or waiting for it. I can enjoy my night. There's no point needing to think about it. So it's recognizing these little thoughts and just interrupting them and reminding yourself it's okay to just let go of them, and it's fine. And in that sort of related to that is the idea of when I'm is letting go of all your worries about other people and focusing more on doing things for ourselves. I almost call myself a little bit of a busybody because I'm always probably wanting to meddle or help Tim or help Lucia when they really don't need to. And I recognize that I've done that a lot in the past. It's not necessarily been welcome, and I just make more work for myself. So I'll give you an example from this weekend. So we went cycling in Wales, and we picked this really hard path. I don't know if you've been to some of the slate areas. So going on down this really steep path that was hard enough to walk down, no chance of cycling it, all loose slate underfoot, really, really steep. I'm off the bike, I'm holding my bike to try and walk down this thing, and having to be really careful with my footing because it's all loose paving. And my phone rings. So I get my phone out, and Lucia's in floods of tears on the phone. So I'm in the middle of nowhere, and she's basically the washing machine's flooded. It had stopped, and she couldn't get it to start again. So she'd Googled it, and it told us to take this little catch off at the bottom. And then it's exploded water out of it, and concrete and dust and pebbles and stones. So this is all coming out of Tim's workwear when he washes it. And litres of it have flooded the kitchen everywhere. And I don't have a mop. I have this sort of cleaning system with microfiber pads on it, but no mop and bucket. So she has no way of cleaning it up, and it's gone under the sink and under the washing machine and under things that she can't access. So she is literally beside herself. So I'm thinking then, well, I'm going to have to get home, go home early, try and sort this mess out. Anyway, in the end, and as well as feeling guilty for not being there while this thing that you couldn't forecast happened. But what actually happened was I decided to stay, and I thought, okay, I don't want her to be like this, but all she has to do is run upstairs, get some towels, hang them out, go to Tesco, buy a mop, buy a map, come and find me. No, buy a mop, and it will be okay. And it was, in fact, I got home, we laughed about it. The kitchen floor was spotless. The washing machine had started working again, so she'd washed everything. And it was a really valuable lesson for her to learn how to cope with a dramatic situation and be okay. And also a really valuable lesson for me to not feel that I'm responsible for everything all of the time. So, and that's just, again, it's just part of this process of trying to find ways to sort of to let go of things just for your own sanity, because it will be okay. And then you start to feel that you've got less stress, less things to worry about, which means that when you are coping with a busier month like September can be, you're actually more resilient because you're getting rid of all the unnecessary stuff that's really not helping. And that enables you to focus and be more in control of the things that really do need to happen. So the whole month can start, your life can just start to feel a lot easier. Then another thing I want us to think about in Self-Care September, this is where it really comes into its own, is are you up for planning in a treat for yourself this month? Because I think we should all commit to doing this and share it in the group. I'm thinking along the lines of have like a myofascial release massage, but it's definitely not relaxing. The guy that does it never stops talking. So I'm thinking of booking myself a relaxing massage or a sauna, or what someone on the group had an Indian head massage recently and face massages, which I used to do, which I absolutely love. So I'm thinking of a few things like that. I've not had a chance to think and book it yet, but I will share it in the group when I do it. But again, I think this would be a really nice thing for us to be all thinking about. What are the things that we can do that we can enjoy, some nice little treat that just helps us manage and cope with the stress of September. So let me know if you're up for that. And then the other thing, and then the last thing is to sort of start to focus on our goals a bit more, positive things to look forward to that really do motivate us. Some of us have got goals, I know that, and people have shared them with me, and I really love to hear about this because there's some amazing and really exciting and awe-inspiring sort of adventures that people want to have, or ways to challenge themselves. Other people want to have some goals but not sure what they are yet, which is fine. That's exactly what I was like a couple of years ago. And that was why I set up this idea to have this live session on Wednesday, the 3rd of September. So, we can start to indulge ourselves a little bit more about thinking about things that might bring some more excitement into our lives. Things that we can look forward to. Things that put life into perspective and help us. Again, it's another way of helping to cope with the more mundane, routine sort of pressures of day to day. It's somewhere to divert our mind towards, so that we've got nice things to think about as well as just stressful things to think about. And as I've sort of done this, after, with the minute I signed up for this challenge in September last year, that's only a couple of weeks away now, it just was such a lovely thing to think about and to plan for. And I think if we have a personal goal and we have something like that for ourselves that we can be excited about, then it really does give us a nice counter to only having things in our lives that actually can make us stressed and worried. And I think that's really important. So just to wrap up, and of putting some things in place to help everyone and give you extra support in September, you'll all have in your calendar your regular notifications to book in one-to-ones. If anyone wants to book in an extra for September, by all means, just let me know. I'm always happy to have a chat and just give you extra support or talk through some of the things that we've talked about here. Every Friday, I have a live drop-in session. That's at 1 o'clock, usually till 1:45. There are a couple of weeks I can't do it, actually, which I did mention. But that's just there for anyone who just wants to drop in, have a chat, talk about something, have a question. And I'll always be posting the link for that in the WhatsApp group. But also use the WhatsApp group to get more support and get more accountability from the group. When we're having a bad day, let's share about it. Or equally, when we've found a way through something that was challenging us, let's share it, because that really does motivate it. motivate us. And I know people really enjoy seeing what other people are sharing, because it's just nice to know you're not the only person who's struggling. But reality is we all have the same struggles, and I count myself firmly in that category as well. Or if you prefer a more private way of sharing things or asking for support, then you, of course, you can just message me if you prefer. So that's the plan. That is Self-Care September. So I'd really love to know if you're up for it, what you think about it. Let me know if you're up for thinking of something nice to treat yourself with. Let me know if you're up to have a conversation or to join the live next Wednesday and start talking about some bigger goals and pushing some ideas around for that, and seeing how we can motivate each other to keep going. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to this. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to speaking to you all very soon. All right, bye for now.